We have the honor. Do you want to start with your update for us and then move to questions?
Well, I want everybody to get out their calendars and I want them to put a big red X on November 17th, 2025. And the reason I want you to do that is that for the first time in 160 years, America is back in the hands of Americans who are operating as Americans. Today is the day. Our country is seated, our government is seated, the Americans are back home, uh, and we are all of the things, the terrible things that we've had to address and struggle with for so long are going away. So everyone, let this be a day in our national archives and our memory as a day when the Americans came home again. This is our homecoming day. And so you're going to see some magnificent changes. You're going to see the release of the technologies. You're going to see the erasure of debts. You're going to see freedom from taxation. You're going to see a vast simplification of law and the whole justice system. It's a whole new world. And this was the day. So you are hearing it first. You are among the very first people on this planet that know that this has happened. And it should be tidings of great joy that this has been accomplished with a true minimum of disruption of services, and no nuclear bombs, and relatively little rioting in the streets. And now this great good that has come to our country can spread throughout the world. We're kind of the starting place because we were used as the storefront and operating base, the pirate base, for these criminals, and everything, the records and everything were here. Okay, but so we follow the same sort of rationale. We need to get ourselves straightened out before we can help everybody else. And so that's why we're first. And so we are going to quickly and happily restore freedom and decency and common sense. And then we're going to open up the doors, and we'll be, as soon as possible, helping people from every country on earth that has been affected by this great fraud to recover and recoup and live and grow and be and thrive and have their own cultures and their own countries again, and to live in peace and freedom. That's the goal, is that we'll finally enjoy what we have thought we were fighting for on so many occasions. And so this is it, guys. It is signed, it's sealed, it's delivered. And we'll be opening up the Capitol in Philadelphia. The national capital will be fully restored. And yeah, it's going to be a whole adventure, and hopefully a very joyous adventure for everyone. We're already making plans for community meet and greets all across the country. We'll be kind of preparing everyone, getting everyone back in their natural status. I'll call it our natural status as living people and on the land and soil. And we'll be educating millions of Americans who simply don't know. And we'll be teaching a lot of history that people never got in school. We'll be introducing school programs. We're just, I can't even express the feeling right now at this moment. It's somewhere between wanting to break down and cry and out of just sheer gladness and relief and, great God Almighty, it's done, oh glory. This is this is amazing. I mean, we've been working toward this very steadily for many years, and when you have a a project of this magnitude, when you are beset on every side and somehow get through to the end, it's very humbling and very very joyous moment, but it's almost a solemn feeling too, where you think of all the people that have lived and died in chains and never knew, and all of the patriots over the years who sacrificed and went to prison and lost their homes and suffered discord in their families over this. And but we are free, and we are in control of our own destiny again. And all of our resources, the assets of the country, are safe. They're no longer commandeered by foreign interests. And from here on, it's a whole new story. It's the story that we began with in 1776, and it's the story that we have opening up before us here in 2025, 250 years later. So now we have to educate ourselves and educate our children so that nothing like this can ever happen again. Okay? We have to be grateful to all the other countries in the world and all the other people who showed us goodwill and who have worked with us over time and understood the problem, and who have come together as the family of man, as other people, and who have helped us to secure this with a minimum of destruction. And so we owe great debts to our fellow Americans, the other Americans that you never see on this show or don't get to meet on podcasts, who have devoted their lives to this effort, some for many years. People who have donated significant parts of their pension funds and life savings and endless volunteer hours. And we have friends all around the world, people who, through one way or another, had information, had historical records, had books, had copies of vital documents. We owe a great debt of gratitude to all of them. And one thing I've learned is that there are people of goodwill of every kind, every color, every religion. You just have to embrace mankind with faith and trust and let go of fear and let go of anger and let go of the past. Because what matters now is now. We are standing in the doorway between two worlds. The old world, with all the graft and fraud and violence and criminality and lies and meddling and all of that, and a new world. And right now, we're here in this moment called now, the Alpha and Omega, where the past and the future meet. And this is our point of power. This is where we get to choose. And the choices that we make each day in this moment called now is what's going to influence what happens in the future. And we've got a complete full slate. We can do what we need to do. To a large degree, we can do what we want to do. And our job is just a matter of making good choices, making wise choices, and fully considering the impact that our choices have on other people, and trying to keep that standard of true law always in front of our faces. Because there's really only two laws. The law of gratitude, being aware of the great gifts that we've been given, freely given, and the law of mutual caring, the golden rule, the mandate to treat others as we would like to be treated. Two simple laws. And together, taken together, they add up to the one law, which is to do no harm. If we can keep those three tenets always in front of our faces, we will not go wrong. And what we do today will give us a grand future and a wonderful future for our children and grandchildren. So, as far as I know, as far as I can see, sitting here this moment, 50 years of work, one way or another, on my part, and 35 years of work on Jim's part has come to fruition today, November 17th, 2025. And you are all going to tremendously benefit. The entire world is going to tremendously benefit because the great fraud was discovered and it was brought to an end, and you're back in the saddle, and it just doesn't get any better than this.
Been a long road.
Yeah, it has been a lot of work and many years, lots of tears. You know, for those of you who have lost your homes because of the misadministration and graft and greed and criminality, there's going to be restitution. There's going to be I won't say that you'll look back on all this and it will all seem funny, but in a way it will, because everything you've suffered will be wiped away. All the dreams that you lost, and you'll have a new chance. And you'll have new health modalities. You'll have new options for improving and prolonging your health and being repaired from the damage done by the COVID-19 quote unquote vaccine. There are technologies, and those technologies are being rolled out beginning tomorrow morning. The orders are going out tomorrow morning, and 8 million med beds are going to be deployed worldwide, with more coming off the assembly line, I guess you could say. And the plan is to get the help immediately to those who need it most, those who are in danger of dying, those who have permanent injuries, amputees, for example, and then those who are suffering from chronic diseases. And yes, veterans do get preference. This was developed by the military. It was a technology that was sought because of battlefield injuries. And let's face it, these guys have suffered for our country, and it's only right and fair that they get first dibs when it's time for this kind of technological interaction with their particular problem, their illness, their disease, their mobility issues, those sorts of things. We are blessed that we still have some Korean War veterans. We have Vietnam veterans, and we have the Iraqi War veterans, and we are going to take very good care of them. We're going to heal them physically, financially, and as much as possible emotionally. We're going to shower them with love and gratitude. We're going to be proud of those things that we can take pride in, you know. And one of the things that we can take pride in is our goodwill, and our good name has been returned to us. So going forward, there's no need to hang your head in shame for being an American, or to look back and regret some of the things that we did in ignorance because we were misled and misdirected. I want everybody to, stop being the guilty American. It was not your fault. You did not know. And the things that you did when you didn't know, well, you just have to forgive yourself, and that's the way it is. Okay? And going forward from here, we are determined that our sons and daughters will never be used as cheap mercenaries again, ever. And we're going to do everything we can to educate everyone and to make sure that this kind of thing can never, ever, ever happen again. Now, we've already given the order to begin production of silver coinage, and we will once again have silver dollars. And they will be issued under the Federation of States, and they will be coming off the presses. I'm expecting to get proofs here within the week, and that will then be our second major currency in the asset-backed and asset side of the International Trade Bank. So don't be surprised when your global family accounts come back on and you actually have the controls and the screens and everything that you can manipulate yourselves. You'll see that you not only have AFD, which are gold, you'll also have the new Federation dollars that are silver dollars, traditional silver dollars. And those will also have, you'll have AFD and you'll have silver dollars, and you'll be able to use those too. Traditionally, silver dollars have been our domestic currency, meaning that we use them within the borders of our states. And gold has been an international currency because that's just sort of the world standard. But silver can be used outside of our borders too. It's just that's our tradition, and we have vast amounts of silver. So that's a good thing. And then you'll have your prosperity accounts, which will go to the other side, that will go toward the commerce side. And those of you who saw the video the other night that I made, where I explained how we got all this prepaid credit and how we don't really have a national debt. Okay, well, you'll have prepaid credit that will allow you to do things like wipe out mortgages, wipe out college debts, wipe out car loans, any kind of major debt that you may have, like, say that you have a medical debt. All those things will be something that you can discharge using your prepaid credit. And so you'll also have a prepaid credit account, and you'll have a kind of a dashboard screen where you can order cards for yourself. You can get a credential card, you can get a health card, an ID, all of that. We'll be working hard and fast to arrange for your new passports. We already have our RFID. It's the one that God gave us, our thumbprint. It has been used as our biometrics identification for many, many years, long before any of the great fraud or anything got started. And so we will be using our thumbprint, and we will have a fully exercised identification and passport very rapidly. So this is all good news. Our post office has been preserved, as I reported. We did everything we needed to preserve our original post office, and this will be part of reopening for more public interaction and knowledge, reopening the American government in Philadelphia. And there'll be a lot of things to consider here because now that people understand that the District of Columbia was separate and was in a different jurisdiction, and they understand the nature of the federal subcontractors as being vendors of governmental services, and also understand that one way or another, the treaties that gave rise to those contracts have been defaulted upon a long time ago. We'll have some decisions as a country now whether or not to prolong the existence of the District of Columbia, or if perhaps we'll have an extra state. You know, we have questions about continuing the contract with the British territorial government. That particular contract is for defense of the country, and of course it's a very important contract because of that. However, we've had a lot of problems, and all of that needs to be reviewed and analyzed, and decisions have to be made about are we going to provide our own defense? Do we have to have any kind of alliance with Britain or anybody else? There are a lot of things like that people need to kind of take into their heart of hearts and start thinking about. Most of you this past week have heard that 4 of the western provinces of Canada, which is by far the largest part of the landmass of Canada, has decided to join the United States. Now, it's important for everybody to understand, they were originally part of a gigantic land grant that included both what we could think of as the United States and Canada. And it was almost a fluke of fate that there was ever a demarcation, a line between the states and Canada. But now that they've had a chance to do the historical research and look at the situation and look at their options, the Canadians are voting to join us and to become states of the Union. And they went through the same exact process as the states of the Union have gone through, in that they were organized as territories and they are ready to step up out of the territorial status and become states of the Union. So first, they'll have to go through a process by which they are recognized by the other territorial states as territories of the United States, right? And then they'll have to be enrolled by the existing states of the Union as states of the Union, so that they then have the possession and enjoyment of the land and soil assets and water and everything else within their borders. So this is a process we can look forward to. It vastly increases the size of our country, and assuming that the Northwest Territories may also be encouraged by what they see going on in the provinces, the former provinces of British Columbia, Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, the Northwest Territories may very well decide to also come on board either as a contiguous block as it currently is, or they may decide to split into, say, two states out of the Northwest Territories, which are immense. Okay, but anyway, if that were to happen, then we would have a very clear shot at having an expanded rail system, to have an abundant and very active industrial sector again. We can look at railroad connections and all sorts of development that we couldn't have looked at before. And we can look forward to a time when there's a more of a rapprochement between the eastern provinces of Canada too. Currently, the eastern provinces are more, I won't want to say industrialized, but they're more bureaucratic. They have more of a governmental side to them. They're more connected to the old system. Okay, they're not as open and as pragmatic in a sense. They're not focused on the development issues and the the welfare of the people and everything that goes on in Western Canada to the same extent anyway. And but anyway, we'll go forward and we'll see what happens. The eastern provinces may decide to join us too once they get a chance to see how things develop and how things go. And it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be alive, and an exciting time to embrace a future where we can move forward together on projects that would otherwise be stymied by bureaucratic red tape and interoffice memos and other kinds of obstructions that just come about because of a government that is self-interested. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing 4 new states. I'm looking forward to seeing Western Canada join us. I'm looking forward to the kind of reciprocity and fun and resource development and everything else that can take place between the United States and these 4 former Canadian provinces. It's just wonderful news. And then there's also been huge changes in Britain this past week that you should know about. The government of Keir Starmer has basically self-destructed in front of our very eyes. It was discovered that the Starmer government and the Prime Minister had very brazenly suggested the dissolution of the House of Lords, the disbanding of the Privy Council, and its replacement by an elected body, another elected body besides Parliament, and basically stripping the monarchy of its remaining powers. And also they had begun a process of encroaching on all of the royal trust estates and lopping off land for things like housing developments without the consultation with the monarchy. And all of this really, it should have outraged the British public. And so within about 24 hours, the Starmer government is gone, and Britain is somewhat in chaos as it's struggling around and trying to bring together a new government, which is always a process, and the election of a new prime minister. And there are some very unusual signs going on in terms of the electorate. The Labor Party, that was Starmer's very uber liberal party, lost approximately half of its support overnight over this. And most of those people are not going to the traditional conservative party that's seen as kind of part of the problem. Similar to what we have here, where the two-party system has gotten a very bad name for being two sides of the same evil. They're going to the UK Reform Party under Farage, and it seems to be a huge shift that is just gathering momentum as the British people react against this attack on their cherished system that they've developed over the last several hundred years. I have commented that they should go all the way and bring their government back to the land and soil. The British government hasn't really been operating as a constitutional monarchy, which is what the British people were promised and what they thought they had. They haven't really had that for 300 years because the monarchs have been operating on the sea jurisdiction, and the government has been operating on the sea jurisdiction under sea law. And as a result, you can't have a constitutional monarchy that's actually operating and doing what it should at the same time that you have a government that's vacated the land and soil and is out to sea, right? So I'm suggesting to them that they actually come home, and those who have ancestral claims to specific national thrones should come forward and sit on them, so that those land jurisdiction governments are no longer vacant. And so you've got England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, all of which have hereditary kings and queens. They could all seat their actual monarchs and have their national governments restored almost overnight. It's just a matter of, some it's just a matter of some research and people raising their hands, and the appropriate parties coming together and saying, okay, well, we have our rules for how these things are sorted out, and he gets the prize, or she gets the prize, and actually settling those governments so that we have land jurisdiction governments and actual functioning constitutional monarchies available to the people in those countries. So that's another big change. That's another very hopeful sign. We're beginning to see a lot more activity in Europe proper. I'm very happy that the warmongers have not succeeded in further inflaming the situation between Europe, Russia, and the Ukraine. There are a lot of reasons why Americans owe Russia a great debt of gratitude. I know that's going to sound very strange to people who have been indoctrinated all their lives to fear the Russians and, all of this, but the fact is that Russia has often weighed in on our side and protected us while we were sleepwalking. And so we have a debt of gratitude to Russia, and we certainly have some things very much in common with Russia. We have a shared European history. We have the Russians have been with us through 2 world wars as allies and or as neutrals that were supportive. It was the Russians that kept the British from coming ashore and taking over our country overtly after the Civil War. They blockaded the ports and did not let the British Navy attack. And so it was the Russians that saved us from overt military force after the Civil War. I could go on. I'm just letting you know that there are some allies in this world that you might not have counted, or some debts of gratitude that need to be paid that you weren't aware of. And so the Russians have been our friends. They've certainly been more our friends than the government of England, for example. And so we definitely want to work toward a peaceful and productive and positive relationship with all governments. We want all of the countries to have land jurisdiction governments that are operating properly and properly representing their nations. We would like to see some changes in the United Nations, perhaps a return to more of a League of Nations concept. But, all of these are things that will naturally be discussed going forward, and we'll all get a chance to think about these issues and think about basically the old question I've been asking you and bringing to your attention is, what do you want? What kind of world do you want? And so we'll be facing some new, exciting, wonderful challenges. We'll be helping out our neighbors all around the world. We'll be talking to many different nations. We'll be embracing people of every race, every religion. We will be actively working toward a brotherhood of man, a brotherhood of mankind, a model in which people can again trust each other and seek peace and have ways of resolving our difficulties that do not involve dropping bombs and threatening nuclear war and all these other hideous things that have been the hallmarks of corporations that were actually profiting from war, death, and destruction. So, I guess that covers all of the high points of the past week. There's some pretty high points. And I'm ready to take some questions there, Shannon.
Okay, a whole bunch of them came flying in through that, let me tell you.
Well, we'll
Start
take
off.
it.
If we are back in control of our country, when will the national media recognize our sovereignty?
Well, basically, we'll have to issue a proclamation. We'll have to start the actual process toward a government model. We already have a government model, of course, historically, but we'll have to provide more education about that. We'll have to get the military and the troopers and the police and the U.S. Marshals and the Continental Marshals, everybody working together and understanding their jurisdictions and how they're supposed to interact with each other and what their true mission is. We're going to be reforming the culture of law enforcement and bringing forward our peacekeepers so that we no longer have things like police brutality, and the police are no longer the enemy, and all those sorts of things. But so there'll be a lot of interaction and reform and new instructions to a lot of the law enforcement and police forces, and the military too, where they have interfaces with the civilian population. They'll be back to the old quartermaster, postmaster, um, and provost marshal structure. So that will make everything a lot easier in terms of interactions with the military, the civilian population, and the military. So you're going to be seeing some major meetings. Our continental marshals will be fully recognized. They'll be getting their commissions and their stars. Of course, our sheriffs on the counties are already recognized, and they are working toward getting their stars, and their counties, of course, are electing their sheriffs. So we already have sheriffs. We already have the beginnings of state militias. In most of our states have the beginnings of a state militia and have contact people in all of the assemblies. And we have the LEOs, for example, the state troopers. I imagine that since Canada is half of Canada is coming to join us, and they have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and other officers, I imagine that they'll all be coming aboard, and we'll all have a series of educational modules, and we'll just try to sort it all out so everybody knows what they're doing and what jurisdiction they're operating in and what their real mission is. And that should greatly relax tensions between the law enforcement and peacekeeping forces and the military and everybody else. So yeah, we have a lot to do, a lot. And anybody listening to this this evening, kind of buckle up, buttercups. If you thought you were working hard before, you'll have many more people coming into the assemblies. They'll be coming in. Many of them will be coming in for the wrong reasons, right? They'll want their money, right? And so we have to be prepared for that. Our assemblies have to get psychologically and practically prepared to give the proper orientation to these folks so that they realize that this is their inheritance, and help them funnel this into a positive experience. Give them their history, explain to them what happened, make it possible for them to deeply feel their part in this story. We have many nations in this country. We have many races, many religions. We are really, truly the world's melting pot. And we all have to live together, appreciate each other, and respect where we're coming from. And I have some advice for that. Look at each individual as an individual. Don't create groups in your mind and say that oh, he's this and that and the other thing. Okay, well, he's a black Muslim. Don't use those brushes. Just treat each person as a man, as a woman. Get to know them, talk to them, find out what they care about. Why are they here? What are they curious about? What kinds of skills do they have that they might want to contribute? Just interface with people in a very direct way, and look at each one as each one, because that's how God made us. Okay? There is really no such thing as a German or an Italian or an American. We're individuals. We come in a one unit size box, okay? So what we need to do going forward in this country especially, where we do not have a homogeneous population, is that we have to learn to deal with each other and care about each other one by one. So you take that little principle and apply it to your assemblies. As the people come in, and they will come in, because they'll be seeking their birthright. They'll want to inherit what they can inherit. You know how people are when somebody dies, and they all plunk in and well, where's my inheritance, right? You're going to have a lot of that going on, and the assemblies have got to come up with strategies to help funnel that into something positive, and how to give people the bare bones information that they need right up front. You have to have some information about your own state together. You should know the history of your own state, as well as the big story, the big picture that we know as the United States, right? And be prepared to kind of help people get over the shock. Everyone who's here tonight has presumably been here long enough so you've gone through at least some of the stages of coming out of the deep indoctrination and the sleep, right? You know what it's like. The first time you hear this, you shake your head and you go, did I really hear that? And the second or third time, you hear bits and pieces of it and you start connecting, okay, well, I can observe that. Or, yeah, I looked that up and that's true and that's really strange. Or, you start integrating this whole new set of information and this whole different history, right? So there's that stage. And then when you really grasp what was wrong and what happened to our country, then you get mad. Then you get angry and sad, and all these emotions come bubbling up. Hopefully we're going to be able to skip the third step in that process, which used to be being afraid. Because after you get mad and you realize what went on, it used to be that you had to be afraid of your own government doing things like what was done to me, misrepresenting me as a tax cheat, stealing my house and evicting me. These are the kinds of things that used to be done, but this will not be happening anymore. So you can kind of skip that fear phase. And then next, you come to this point where you accept that, okay, this happened. That's the history. That's what it meant to me and my family personally. Okay, well, it is what it is. And then you get a little bit beyond that and you realize, well, that's the past. This is today. What are we going to make of our world today so that we have a better tomorrow? And that's been my basic stance for many years now is, I had this very hard and fast determination that this was going to change and that we were going to get beyond this and it was going to get corrected. But beyond that, it's just a matter of, okay, the past is past. We cannot change it. We can work today on corrections that need to be made. We can work today on building a future that needs to be built, providing those foundations and underpinnings that will be needed going forward. But let's help people get over that. Let's understand where they're at in that process and plan to welcome them home and assist them in what we've all gone through.
Okay, next question. Is the global family bank paying our military's paychecks yet? When will our military start arresting all the bankers, politicians, judges, and doctors and holding the crooks accountable for their crimes?
Well, first, the military has to get oriented. Like I say, they have to know what they're doing and why, and they have to have direction and education. Global Family Bank will be taking over. There are parts of the Global Family Bank that are set up, pre-set up for the Treasury functions. One of the Treasury functions is paying the military. So we will be having a American paymaster, which only makes sense for the American military, right? And that will probably take up one large city block building to do nothing but process the military payroll at this point because we have so many members of the military. The deployment of the military will change. They will be turning their viewpoint, I guess, their attention away from more better ways of killing people, because we already have more than enough ways to kill people, and toward how do we fix problems? How do we deal with economic and natural resource disasters? How do we clean up pollution? How do we promote health? How do we get water in the desert? How do we help other countries that need help? What are we going to do that's positive that the military has the skill set to perform? Well, you find out that the military has a lot of talents and a lot of resources, and they have many great people. And so we're going to put those great people to work doing positive things. And, they'll still have their defense functions, but they will be defense functions. And we'll be thinking of defense not only in terms of national defense, but we'll be working with other countries in terms of a worldwide defense. There will be a lot of changes, and most of it will be wonderful. Some of it may be hard, some of it may be a bit problematic, but hey, it will be a world in which living people matter again. It will be a world in which corporations are put in their place and where corporations can be readily punished for wrongdoing. And we will not have the specter of a World Economic Forum taking over and driving us into some sort of horrible dystopia. As for when, there will start to be some corrective action by the end of next week. One of the things that we have to do is we have to profoundly and quickly change our law system. And the predatory courts have to be shut down. And so that's one of the things that will be happening. I suspect that there will be a need to speak to all of the present governors and all of the support staff that are involved in the administration of state governments. I anticipate that there will be a need to bring together state national guards with other, other groups, other law enforcement, other military and paramilitary organizations, so that everybody knows what's going on and can sing from the same book. But once we have some understanding on the part of the enforcers, then we will arrest. I'm hoping that this can be kind of a catch and release for the most part, where we have a vast number of people who simply don't know that they're doing anything wrong. So in many cases, it will be a matter of educating them and having the position to evoke the credibility issue. I mean, what I've been teaching you for a long time is true, and it's verifiable, and you can dig it up and look at it for yourself. You can observe things for yourselves and determine that it's true. But a lot of these people that have been part of the bureaucracy, they think that we're crazy. They think that this couldn't possibly be true, and it comes as a shock to them. And it's not a welcome shock because, they've been benefiting themselves from this system. We certainly are not bloodthirsty. We don't want to see people harmed, especially those who were ignorant and didn't realize they were doing anything wrong. We want to educate them. We want to redirect them. We want to get them working in a positive vein. And so that kind of communication will be a big part of the upfront of redirecting the government. The people that do need to go to jail or to basically be re-educated, which I know that has a bad connotation because it's been used as a kind of a euphemism for gulags and that sort of thing, but I mean it in the I guess you could say the simple sense that all the bar attorneys will need to be re-educated. And that does not imply they need to be tortured. It just means that they need to be educated and brought back into the fold so that they can contribute their knowledge and skills in a positive way instead of a negative way. And where they have avenues where they can profit themselves and have decent lives without cheating others. So this is going to be a major effort on the part of the entire country to deal with these sorts of organizational and educational issues. And then we will have the issues of actually arresting, and some people will go to jail. Some people will be accused of treason, and quite correctly. I mean, we all know that there are people who have knowingly, willingly, and with malice aforethought sold this country down the drain. Those people will be punished. But, for the most people just need to be educated. Most people actually are fond of this country and would like to see it succeed. And Um, I can speak for most Americans. Most Americans love their little corner of the country, and they have you know, fundamentally good values. So uh, don't don't imagine that this is going to turn into any kind of bloodbath or, mass public hangings or something like that, because that is neither necessary nor desirable. Um, there are things that are set up in law, and we are a lawful government. We're not a legal government, we're a lawful government. Um, there are things set up in law that prevent the prosecution of the, um, I forget the word for it right now, but the indelibly ignorant, those who you've tried to teach and they just don't get it. And there are laws against prosecuting people that are mentally incompetent too. So I'm not sure what defense an individual might take, but some of these guys, I would recommend the idiot's defense. But certainly there are some characters that we all know of that deserve to um, be arrested and either put on death row or um, have a very, very long prison sentence.
So blood, breath, and carnage. I'll change my plans for this weekend.
Yes, well, you always say I'm your conscience, so there you have it.
There we go. All right, next question. Erasure of debt. Does that only apply to ASN or all people like my sister who just got foreclosed on in Massachusetts? And I'm sorry for mispronouncing it.
It will be a erasure of debt. The national debt will go away. The interest on the national debt will go away. And all these mortgages that have been foisted off on people will go away. Now, because of the large amount of money that is uh, kind of consolidated in mortgages, and because of the way they've been packaged as investment securities, we will have to approach the whole issue of the mortgages a little bit more circumspectly than, say, getting rid of the national debt. The idea with the mortgages is to get anybody out of any emergency, any immediate danger, to prevent foreclosures and those sorts of things. But then to start off with a monthly ability to charge off the mortgage so that it's not harming you. So basically, you could think of it as a charge card or a charge account. Just a second, I have to take this one.
Okay, while Anna's busy, I'd like to say loving the responses, loving the questions, but there's no way we're getting through them all tonight. I am trying to get the good ones that have the most people asking. So if I don't get to your question tonight, I apologize profoundly, and I will try to squeeze it in next week.
Okay, I'm back. So we'll be, some of the mortgages will get wiped away because they need to be wiped away right now. Some of the mortgages will get the more gradual approach of um, you'll have a card and you can charge that card for the monthly mortgage, but it won't be coming out of your pocket. So It's just the business of actually having to use the card to pay the mortgage every month. It's just a little extra thing. But hey, compared to having to come up with the money every month and having to work and sweat it, that's a very small task to actually pay the bill every month. The mortgages industry will gradually be phased out, of course, because it was never right to begin with. Okay, so we will be phasing out the mortgage industry in sum total. From now on, when you are buying new houses or constructing new houses, you'll go through a kind of a process of, here's my plan, and it'll get reviewed by architects and people who are structural engineers, and they'll say, oh, okay, well, you might want to do this, or you need to you need to have a stronger bearing wall. Here are different options you might want to consider for roofing, and you'll have some real guidance. You'll have a team of people that are experts that will be able to help you not only in building, but also evaluating existing structures. So if you're buying a house, you'll be able to go and get a team of experts to come through and really help you figure out what are the realities of this place. Do you need a completely new wiring system? Do you need to add structural timbers to keep the garage stable? I mean, all those sorts of things. So you'll go through this little process of getting your property or prospective property that you're building or buying evaluated, and then you'll get the money up front to pay for it. And there won't be a 30-year mortgage. You won't be making monthly payments. There won't be mortgage-backed securities floating around the stock market. You'll have everything taken care of, and it will be yours, period. And you won't have to worry about paying a monthly sum, and you won't be sweating it if you lose your job. You won't be losing your home just because you lost your job. You won't be losing your home just because your husband died or your wife died, or all these things that have been so terrible for so many people for so many years. Those sorts of worries are gone. That's not part of our future. So the mortgage industry will be going away. The construction industry won't be going away. There will be considerably more opportunities for, fine woodworking and bricklaying and tile art and all sorts of other things, because people will be more free to embellish their homes in ways that they, to personalize their environment. So you'll have more freedom in terms of what kind of house you live in, and how it's laid out, and whether your thing is to restore Victorian farmhouses, or you love old Cape Cod houses, or you want a Southern plantation mansion, or whatever your thing is. Basically, you can work through this whole process and own it free and clear, so that you don't have any mortgage, you don't have monthly payments, and you don't have insurance to pay on it because it's indemnified. So all of those expenses go right out the window and are taken care of, and you don't have to live in fear and be under constant stress that somebody's going to take your home away from you, or is going to take your land, or all the horrors that we've gone through. And we've gotten used to this, but this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This kind of coercion and people in uniforms wearing guns swaggering onto your property and telling you that because some other yahoo thought you owed them a debt, you're going to move out of your house after you've slaved and built it? No. All that kind of stuff is going out the door, out of the way, and it's never coming back. All right, so it's a brave new world so far as mortgages are concerned, and don't worry about them because they'll just gradually be phased out, paid off, and we'll be striving for the least harm to anyone as we do this, but they are a thing of the dodo bird past. So that is getting to get resolved, and no property taxes. There's no reason to have property taxes. You never owed property taxes. You're the owner, okay? And all these banks have been operating as crime syndicates. They're going to get totally reformed, stripped down, streamlined, and the bank regulations are going to be very simple and straightforward from now on. So we won't need an entire industry of tax preparers and insurance agents and bond agents and all of that crap. No, we're actually, everybody on this planet is um, enabled to have a home, and we don't have to live like this. We won't live like this. We will not have these kinds of stresses anymore. So you see why it's an important date.
Absolutely. A matter of fact, in these emails, people are already coining the phrase homecoming day.
It is. It's homecoming day.
Is it known, is this, in regards to homecoming day, is it known to the de facto up at the top? Will it be widely known throughout the city, county, and state government? Are they aware? Is this due to the court case?
You are among the first few hundred people to know this on Earth. I mean, stop and savor for a moment. But yes, they will know. Within about 2 weeks, they will all know. And they'll have, many of them will have started their education. So, yes, no more de facto BS. No more people harassing you. No more public employees lording it over you. None of it. It's gone. You were always the true owners. You were always the true creditors, and you are now back in position in your own country with your own government, and it's like I say, it's a whole new world.
Okay, next question. I would like to know if, when the new dashboard is open, will we still be able to cash out bonds and currency if we hold Zim dollars as a promise to broker an 80 through 20% fee when we go live? Also, what shall it be the process to exchange them so that we are not left out?
Well, nobody's going to be left out to the extent that there's anything to participate in. There's going to have to be a process with the government of Zimbabwe. You all realize that the Zim bonds and all of that was a CIA engineered op, and it was basically um, it was set up through graft and corruption to get Zimbabwean presidents to sell out their own country and countrymen, uh, and to securitize the wealth of minerals, gold and rare earths and all of that in the ground in Zimbabwe. So these resources were sold and bonded, securitized and bonded under conditions of corruption. And so, yes, they have vast, vast resources of minerals, and yes, they are incredibly valuable. And yes, these bonds do stand for those resources. But there are other questions that have to be asked, and one of the questions is, uh, on what terms do the people of Zimbabwe want to sell these resources, or do they want to sell these resources? And, what is that going to mean to them environmentally and ecologically? Because Zimbabwe is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. It has some of the most diverse biosphere elements of any place on the planet. And it has loads of rare habitats for rare animals like the black rhino. So there are things there that you can't just discount, you know. And so it's a more complex thing than just, oh, they bonded these resources in the ground and I'm owed, $2 billion. Uh, the people of Zimbabwe they didn't have a voice. It's like a forced contract, a contract under duress. And so there's going to have to be a process by which the actual people of Zimbabwe are engaged and consulted about how they want the development of their country or not. And, what do they want to do with their resources? And how do they want to resolve these Zim bonds, which have been floated against their resources? How do we as a community, a global village, if you will, of countries want to deal with what's been done in Zimbabwe? Because it was 90% MI6 and the CIA and these international intelligence agencies that were setting up Zimbabwe to basically rape and pillage Zimbabwe and make money off of Zimbabwe's natural resources. It was not a natural or voluntary process. And so the future of the Zimbabwe bonds is something that is going to have to be addressed with the actual people of the country. I'm sorry to say that, and I know everybody is disappointed who's holding Zim bonds and thinking that that's going to be their future and everything, but look at it this way. They're always going to be worth more than you put into them, and you're going to have the benefit of your own resources, so you're not going to be scrabbling around. You're going to be wealthy yourself anyway, so you won't need to depend on somebody else's natural resources being snatched and latched onto. You'll have more than enough of your own resources to do the things you want to do.
Okay, the next one is a long one. Would you please have yeah. As I understand it, for global payment system to work, it will have to use the traditional banks in order for the vendors we buy from to receive the payments we make. Why would the traditional banks ever allow this? By this, I mean the traditional banks are in the process of trying to force social credit scoring slash carbon credit allowances on society. Why wouldn't they demand global do this? Also, as a price for allowing the global to deal with them.
Well, number one, we own those banks, so they don't have any choice anymore. They're foreclosed. And so, what we tell them to do, they're going to do. They've been operating improperly for many decades. They're going to start operating as they should. And we're going to be using the QRC codes, not the barcodes, but we will be using QRC codes in a state-of-the-art system, and the banks will just have to get their IT systems in alignment with globals, and we do have the interfaces prepared to be able to do that. And then it will switch from cards having barcodes to cards having QRC codes, and the banks will be dealing with carriage accounting instead of double accrual accounting. And a lot of the 80 million different statutes and all of that will go right out the window. It'll be a much simpler process. It'll be a much quicker process because you won't be transferring through a transfer monopoly system. You'll have a immediate, instantaneous account to account interaction in the new system. So say you wanted to send me $10,000. I'm here. But say you wanted to send me $10,000. It'll no longer be a matter of sending a wire transfer and waiting 2 weeks. It'll be instant. It'll just go like that, account to account. They'll just marry up QRC code to QRC code. Boom, there you have it. It's hard to imagine, but a lot of the cumbersome, dated nature of the bank system was because the people that had their little transfer monopoly going didn't want to invest in updating. Well, so it's been updated and it no longer needs the transfer system. It has its own built-in, super fast, automatic system.
Okay, next question. How are Global's infrastructure resources and property centers getting funded? Who is the Federation or GBG Office of Treasury, which holds fiduciary capacity?
Well, that's a good question. We have huge, 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 huge resources. And so my plan as a fiduciary is to fund the banks so that the banks are there to serve the people. And we'll pick up an awful lot of the current banks, which are foreclosed, right? So we'll pick up a lot of them and keep them open to provide service to the people that are used to using those banks. See, the role of the fiduciary is not the role of a bean counter. I'm not the accountant, all right? I'm the person that looks at it and says, is it a worthwhile benefit to the community to not have its bank close? Even though the bank has been foreclosed and is going to have to operate under a different law and all these other issues, is it of significant benefit to the community not to have its bank closed? Well, yeah, that's a significant benefit to the community. So we'll buy the bank, we'll stock the bank, we'll teach them the controlling law, we'll work with the local people, we'll make sure that the banks stay open. That's just good common sense.
Okay, seems GFG has become very popular all of a sudden. Could you please ask Anna if there's any chance we get access to our accounts in time for Thanksgiving, or is there even a timetable out?
There's not a timetable out. We're still having to build certain interfaces to be able to connect and be able to transfer and connect to funds in banks and credit unions money marts and all sorts of different things. It's more complex than you think. But we should have at least the vendors should be open very soon so that you can use your funds to buy things from vendors. And then shortly thereafter, the exchange platform goes live and you're able to trade in all these different world currencies.
Okay, now this is a unique one. Somebody asked, how does she remain so focused and not get distracted and able to maintain her can-do positive attitude no matter what is thrown at her?
I haven't had any choice. You know, you look at something as big as what we were looking at the beginning of this, and it's like eating an elephant. You're looking at this humongous thing that it's totally overwhelming. You can't even possibly imagine how you're going to do this, and you just have to get to a point where you say, "Well, I'm going to do it." I don't. Sure, I might not be able to eat that elephant, but I'll get a million mice and together we'll eat that elephant, And we just have to, we work together and we form a common understanding of the problem and we solve the problem. And I have every faith that people are motivated for their own self-interest, if nothing else. And that when something like the great fraud comes along and they're being treated badly by their own employees, that they will be motivated to seize back their birthright and do what needs to be done to correct things.
Okay, for starters, everyone is now pouring of love for you, boss. The next part is what will happen to our law enforcement and justice system? Will the officers finally recognize Americans on the highway? Will our American government be able to shut down all the misinformation like the QFS scams and cryptocurrency scams?
Well, we may not be able to shut down the QFS or the cryptocurrency unless we can prove that they're scams in some way, that they're not providing the service that they claim they're providing. To a certain extent, in every marketplace, there are some caveats, the buyer beware caveats, where people have the freedom to choose a product, but it may not be wise to invest in that product. But as long as they're providing what they say they're providing, then the government doesn't have a lot to say about restricting free trade and taking products off the market unless they're fraudulent or harmful. So probably the various cryptocurrencies will continue to be traded to the extent that people want to trade in them. But frankly, if you've got prepaid credit and you've got, asset-backed gold and silver, why would you need or want cryptocurrency? You're not going to have big brothers looking down your shirt every time you turn around. There will be privacy in the new system. You won't have your accounts constantly monitored by anything. There would have to be some reason that, for example, your account was showing really unusual activity and it looked like you were money laundering or something like that. But for the most part, whoever was snooping into your account would have to have a reasonable probable cause to suspect it was being used for criminal purposes. And I'll tell you what, you don't want to do any criminal purposes in this new system, because if you get caught abusing it for criminal purposes, then you lose access to it. And you don't want to lose access because it's the loss of your birthright. So, you know, if you're a drug smuggling human trafficker and you're using our bank system, you're going to get bounced out, and then you'll have to go get service from QFS or whatever service you can get service with, because you know that when we say that we're done with evil, we mean it. We flat out mean it. If you're not prepared to take the plunge and be done with evil, then don't even bother setting up a GFG account, because we're not putting up with it. We worked all these years and did all this stuff to make sure that people had a fair break and they'd have ample money. There's no reason for crime anymore. There's no reason for anybody to, you know, cheat anybody. There's no reason for anybody to kidnap children. None of this. So, you know, all I can say is if you want to be an adrenochrome factory owner, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else, because this bank system and the people running it are flat out done with evil. We're done with murder. We're done with co-option. We're done with lies. All that stuff needs to exit stage left and stay out. And, you know, we make no bones about that. This is a service that is offered for free. It's offered to everybody. Everybody can take advantage of it. Everybody can use it. Everybody can, you know, freely trade and buy and sell, and do so on a private basis. It's a very simple carriage accounting. It's not anything criminal or sneaky or, you know, it's just a very simple, basic international bank service. But you're going to love it. You're going to want access to your account, because you're going to have prepaid credit and gold and silver coming back to you, and you're not going to want to lose that account. You're not going to want to endanger that account, and you'll have no reason to do so. So, you know, it's just a simple choice. You're either done with evil or you're not. If you're not done with evil, choose a different bank.
All right. Next question coming to us all the way from the Victoria Assembly in Australia. Should countries still be establishing their indemnity bonds, and is there any help available?
Well, each one of your states or provinces, or you know, your country as a whole, is indemnified. Okay, so that just happens as a matter of course in the whole system we're building. So that's something I really need to talk about with each individual assembly. But the answer is no, you don't actually have to do bonds in order to be indemnified. We did the indemnity bond because we are operating in free trade, and that bond guarantees our activities with other countries. So that's, you know, the whole bond system is something that really needs to be reviewed and thought through, because bonds create what? bondage. And it's the existence of bonds that led to the development of the entire motive and execution and implementation of the Great Fraud. So the open question is whether we need or want or should use bonds at all for anything. Because it's still the same old story. If you allow the enslavement of one man, you have just theoretically allowed the imprisonment and enslavement of all men. It's the same thing with bonds. If you use bonds, then you open up the possibility of bondage. And as you can see, what started out as bonds being floated by municipal corporations ended up as bonds being imposed upon living flesh. And nobody should ever live in bondage. So I'm going to have to look at the bonds system and see what can be done in terms of taking care of the needs that bonds have taken care of in the past, but using a different way to do it is what I think. Simply because if you have bonds, then you open up the door to bondage, and bondage is an evil thing.
Okay, next question. Who makes the determination whether someone is laundering money? Do we get to represent ourselves, or do they just close the account and that's it? You get no chance to defend yourself.
No, you get a chance to defend yourself. You have to, you have to be found guilty of money laundering. But, who would do money laundering? Well, obviously the US government did it on an incredible scale. Each and every one of you has been used for the purposes of money laundering. Every single one of you has got a person attached to your good name who's a British territorial estate, a person, right? So I told everybody the story of how we asked for our IRS master file. We wanted to see what our master file said about us. And we had to order the, Flash Gordon decoder book to be able to read the report because it was all encoded and encrypted. But we finally did get the darn thing, and we sat there and drove ourselves crazy decoding the reports in our IRS master file. And it basically said that we were doing things that we weren't doing. It made up this entire dossier about fictional people using our names. So, for example, Anna Maria Reisinger, according to the IRS master file, was a middle manager in a rum distillery in Barbados. Not me. Never went there, never did that. But they took my name. Yeah, they took my name and used it to create this fictional person involved in a fictional job. And they do the same thing with everybody. Everybody who has an IRS master file has been subjected to fictionalization in this way. When we checked my husband's master file, he was supposedly running guns in South America, like Ollie North. And, it was just mind blowing that here we thought, at that point, we thought the IRS was a government agency, legitimately a government agency. And here's this government agency making up this entire dossier of completely fictional lies about us, about our name, attaching all this to our name. And we realized at a certain point that they had to do this in order to subject us to their regulation. You see, everybody who has an IRS master file has been identified as someone engaged in the interstate manufacture, sale, or transportation of alcohol, tobacco, or firearms. And that's why I was engaged in making rum, and my husband was engaged in selling guns. You see, every IRS master file has some fictional character that's using your name that's engaged in some aspect of the manufacture, sale, or interstate transportation of alcohol, drugs, or alcohol, tobacco, or firearms. And they're using this for money laundering purposes. They're laundering a lot of money through those sorts of fictional persons, because of course they can open up bank accounts for these fictional persons, and they can open up credit cards for these fictional persons, and they can dump lots and lots and lots of money into the accounts that are owned or operated by these fictional persons, and then they can use those funds to pay off whoever they want to pay off. You know, you've seen a glimpse of that with what was reported out of Burkina Faso, where they were using non-governmental organizations, things like U.S. aid grant recipient organizations, to pay off spies and to expedite CIA operations in Africa and transport all sorts of stuff all over Africa. The Mossad had an entire communications network and a mining network set up all over Africa that nobody even knew about. And so, you know, they use these fake persons to launder money in situations like that. And of course, it's all always offshore. You'll notice that I was supposedly acting as a mid-manager of a rum distillery in Barbados. Okay, so that's offshore for us. It's a foreign territory for us, right? And my husband was working in South America. You see, there's a common thread here. And so they were using all of our names to create these fictional characters, and then they were setting up bank accounts for these fictional characters in other countries, and they were passing money back, forth, and sideways all over the place, and gold. They were passing gold through these different personas, and they were just making use of us in a way that we had no idea of. And so when they come after you for these outrageous amounts of taxes, like, well, you saw they had Gallery of the Lakes owed $1,248,000 or something outrageous, according to them, in their dreams. Okay, so this is all just fictional. These are fictional persons to begin with, and they're fictional amounts of money. And they're just doing this accounting, all these transactions to launder money. See, it is extremely, extremely criminal. All of this stuff is just plain lies and fictions, and you know, aggravated identity theft is what it's called. As a crime, it's aggravated identity theft. It's aggravated because they're using your good name and person, your identity, for a criminal purpose. And that's how the IRS has been operating right along. Now, when the IRS agent comes and he pulls your master file, what does he see? Oh, well, I don't know what she's doing here in Big Lake, Alaska, but last year she was working as a mid-manager in a rum distillery. She owes us taxes on her wages. You see? And all that stuff has been going on right underneath our blissfully ignorant noses. We haven't known. And we couldn't do anything about what we didn't know, right? So they kept us ignorant and they kept mum. And they ran this entire gigantic confidence racket and racketeering and extortion system with the efficiency of a factory. They turned the entire currency market into a money mill, literally. So I hope I'm not shocking people, but this is the truth. It was a very, very criminal scheme, and it affected virtually everything. It affected housing, it affected land, it affected ownership claims, it affected services, food, you name it. They were into everything, and they were lying about and weaseling and just getting away with it. There was an unobstructed path between them and your pocketbook.
Well, I still stand by the fact that the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms should never have been a government entity. It should have been a convenience store. All right, we got 3 minutes till we reach the 2 hour mark on it. Here's one that's been asked about 7 times tonight. Why will people want to work since they will all be rich?
Because they'll be bored and there'll be need for people to work. Think about this. Why do people avoid work? Number one, probably because they're doing the wrong kind of work for them. They don't enjoy it, right? But number two, what will you do without work? I mean, if all you've got to do is lay around on a beach and drink pina coladas, what kind of a life is that? I mean, maybe a very few rare people could do that and just sit there and go, maybe they could make up little tunes and, who knows? But normal people don't do that. Normal people have interests. Normal people develop skills. And they find their way into doing things. Now, whether they do this for money or they do this for love is, you know, who knows why you would do things. Why have I done this? I've done this for 50 years for free. There's a good example of it. Why do you do things? You do it for love of your country. You do it for love of your countrymen. You do it because it's the right thing to do. You do it because you happen to be standing there and there's nobody else to do it. Why do you take care of an elderly relative? Well, you're standing there and there's nobody else to do it. And you love them. So you wipe their butt and you change their diapers and you do all of the things that are necessary. And whether, if you don't need payment, well, then you don't need payment. You still have a life. And what about grocery stocking? Well, I'll tell you what, I've actually heard tell of what happens when there are no people who will stock grocery shelves. It gets pretty darn chaotic at the grocery store. If you think you're having trouble finding beans now, just wait until there are nobody is interested in stocking shelves. But you know what happens? People get interested in stocking shelves because they get frustrated with chaos and they decide, well, I'm going to go spend an hour and I'm going to stock the refried beans and tomatoes, okay? People just start doing things without the goad of money behind it all. There was a time long before this when there was no money and we didn't need money because we were living in a communal environment and we were doing things for each other and it was all working out. So you don't really even need money. And if money is the only thing that's motivating you, well, you need to look inside yourself and find the things that are true motivations. You know, I think it's ridiculous. I've often said I don't believe in money. I flat out don't believe in it. I think it's absolutely stupid. I put it in a category of insanity. We are behaving as if we were mice in a maze and we had to go to this particular place and put on this particular uniform and be there at a particular time and push this lever to get my little plastic kernel of corn. That's just sheer denigration. That's how could I even think that this little kernel of corn was worth my time and effort against my will? I, Once you really step back from what we do and why we do it, it will become very apparent that we have been serving a ignoble purpose and we haven't even lived our lives because of it. And that has nothing to say that any kind of honest work is honorable. Any kind of honest work is noble. But think of all of the different things that people have done that were meaningless, that were just adjuncts to criminality. As time goes by, it will become apparent how valuable your life and energy really are. And the time that you have on this planet and the time that you have it to share with others that you love, that's what matters. To do the things you love, to experience the beauty of the planet, to be with people that love you and you love, and to be part of a community, this is what makes us happy. And people will serve happiness faster than they will serve almost anything else. So what you're going to see is once the burdens of life are removed off your shoulders, like Jesus said, come to me, you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay? Once the burdens of life and the fears of life are taken off your shoulders, and you're no longer laying there in bed dreading that a bunch of goons in flak jackets are going to come tear open your door and terrorize you. When you're no longer agonizing over whether you got your exact right accounting for the taxes done. Now, when all those things are gone, you're finally free. You're not only a sovereign entity as an individual being, but you are sovereign financially, so that you don't have all these ugly motivations. The motivations that you have become pure because they're things you want to do or you see the need of doing, and so you do them. Now, do I want to scrub the toilet bowl? Not particularly. But do I want to have a nasty toilet? No. So I scrub the toilet bowl, right? This is this is just the way life is. And we'll all have decisions about what we're doing with our time. But ultimately, I don't think that normal people are going to be content to just sit around and waste their time and not do anything. Did Shannon take a break? I guess
No, I
it's
like going on.
okay. Well, we made it to 2 hours. It's a very important night. Everybody got some really good news tonight. Um, take it to bed and sleep on it and feel better.
Well, hoping, right?
That's absolutely true. We're all going to have to work hard. We're going to have to make this work. We're the government now.
I still vote ATF should have been a convenience store.
Good night, Shannon. Good night, everybody. God bless.
Rest well, dream of the impossible.
That's right. Dream of the impossible and make it real.